Hello everyone and welcome to this edition of the Darktable from A to Z series. My name is Hal and today we're going to talk about highlight and color reconstruction. This is covered in 2 modules in Darktable, so let's crack on. The highlight reconstruction module tries to reconstruct color information in clipped areas. For instance, if we take this image here and let's show the clipped colors, you can see that green is clipped in this area. So if I disable the highlight reconstruction module, the highlights here will have a purple tinge. Enabling it again shows you that the color cast is removed from the highlights. We have 3 methods that we can choose for highlight reconstruction. The first one is clip highlights. Clip highlights just clips all the color information to gray. This is useful if the overexposed highlights or the clipped highlights are in a white area, just like the clouds, for instance. This is, you can see here that everything became whitish. The second method is reconstruct in LCH. Reconstruct in LCH, instead of clipping the highlights, tries to reconstruct the missing color information, the missing channel information in each pixel from the existent information. However, the result is still monochrome. The advantage of this method is that it can reconstruct more details in the subject. So if your clipped highlights are somewhere where there are details and you would like to reconstruct these details, you would use this method, even though the result will still be monochrome. The last method is reconstruct color, which tries to recover the missing color information, or at least reconstruct it from the color of the surrounding area. So that works best if the whole area has a single color. Now, for highlight reconstruction to work, you have to try to recover the highlights with the negative exposure compensation. So if I use the underexposed, overexposed indicators, I can see this whole area is overexposed. I'm going to go to the exposure module and apply negative exposure until this whole thing is not red anymore. However, if you don't want the whole image to be darker, then you should use a mask to only affect the area that is overexposed. If you'd like to have more information on how to use masks, then refer to one of the previous videos in this series. So let's add a drone mask. And try to add the whole area. Okay, so now we can go back to the highlight reconstruction and see the difference. So that's the clip highlights. The reconstruct in LCH, you can see that if you look carefully, as we discussed, the reconstruct in LCH recovers more details, and the reconstruct color tries to recreate the color from the surrounding areas. This does not work very well on this image, as you can see here, because the area is not all in one color. So there is some green from the trees below and some blue from the sky intermixing. You can try to fix that with some heal maybe, or since it's just the sky, you might try to keep it in, or leave it at reconstruct in LCH. there is a slider here that says clipping threshold, and both the manual and the tooltip here say manually adjust the clipping threshold against magenta highlights. You shouldn't ever need to touch this. Okay, couldn't tell you why it's there then, but I can say that it does work without it. We can try playing around with it and see if it makes any difference. Oh, well, it does, but not. Let's see, go back to default, and I'm going to try to pull it to the left a bit. Oh, actually I prefer it. That's the stubborn in me. No, we shouldn't touch it. It's not true. You can play around with it and see if you prefer any other settings. Let's try to see what the highlight reconstruction does in this image. As you can see, there's quite a bit of overexposed highlights. That is at least in my photos, a common problem with sunset and sunrise photos. So let's see if we can fix that. First, go back to exposure and try to recover them. I'm not going to use a mask since we'll try to fix it later if we need to. Go back to highlight reconstruction and zoom in a little bit. The default is on clip highlights. Let's see the reconstruct. Oh, the reconstruct clipped them again. Okay. No, I don't think I like this one. You can see that there is more details. Some of the trees or the tree detail have been recovered, but I don't think it's really needed. Let's see what the color reconstruct color method would do. Again, there's a bit more yellow. Actually, I think for this one, just the clip highlights is probably okay. It is a matter of preference at the end of the day. If you want the sun to be the focus of the photo, then you might want to reconstruct some of the color, but I don't think it adds much to this photo, and especially that have to lower the exposure or add so much negative exposure compensation that it's not worth it. Yeah, I think that's okay. We've already mentioned multiple times that darktable usually has multiple ways to achieve the same result or to do the same post-processing. And here we have a whole module that's dedicated to color reconstruction. The color reconstruction module is there to reconstruct colors in clipped highlights. It attempts to heal the color in overexposed highlights by reconstructing the color information from neighboring pixels. So it works a little bit like the third method in the highlight reconstruction module that we just discussed. Let's see if it does a better job on this image. The first slider is the threshold slider. This is the lightness value above which the pixels will be affected and below which the pixels will be used as a basis to recover the color in the affected pixels. i.e., here we have 100. All the pixels that have a value above 100 in lightness will be affected, so the color reconstruction module will try to reconstruct color in these pixels based on the information in the pixels that fall under the 100 threshold. If you pull this to the right, it will affect less pixels, and you will have more pixels to to base your reconstruction on, and inversely, if you pull it to the left, it will affect more pixels, but you will have less pixels to use to reconstruct the color from. Next, you have the spatial extent slider. Simply said, this is how far away the pixels should be from the affected area to be used for replacement color. i.e., if you have a higher one, color information will be pulled from pixels further away from the affected area. And if you pull it to the left, the color information will only be pulled from less than or a smaller and smaller area around the affected area. The advantage is, if you actually increase it, you will have more pixels to pull color from. But if you end up in an area with different color, then it will affect the end result. So if your affected area is in a subject of a uniform color, then you can try to change this to pull information or to pull color information from the whole subject. The best way to test it is to try to pull it as far as possible to the right to get a correct result, and once it starts affecting the results, then you pull it back to the left to get back to an acceptable color information. Next, we have the range extent slider. It's the same as the spatial extent, but here we're not talking about distance from the affected area, but difference in luminosity from the affected pixels. Again, if you pull it to the right, you'll have more pixels to pull from, but that might affect the end result. So it is a trial and error kind of situation. You try to pull it as far to the right as you can. Once you see that the effect is not to your liking, or that the end result is being affected negatively, then you pull it back to the left. This way you'll make sure that you're using as many pixels as possible to reconstruct the color in the affected area without actually ending up with a result that you do not like, or that's not true to reality. Next, we have the precedence combo box, and here you have two options. Saturated colors, which give precedence to pixels based on how saturated they are. So the more saturated a color is in a pixel, then the more it affects the end result in the overexposed highlights. Or hue, and hue lets you select which color takes precedence. Well, I had to go and look up another photo that would better illustrate the capabilities of the color reconstruction module, since these other two didn't have enough color information to actually matter. We're turning to this photos of daffodils. As you can see, there is a lot of overexposed highlights. That was just in the middle of this day, lots of sun around it, horrible, and you can see it here. It's overexposed. And let's zoom in on the worst part, and we're just going to turn on the color reconstruction module, and as you can see, even the default settings are already much better. Let's see if we can improve that a bit. I'm going to first pull the spatial and the range. Yeah, you can see all the color that's been recovered. I can as well try put saturated colors or hue and then select yellow, since it's all yellow. As you can see, that makes a lot of difference just by playing a little bit with it. Of course, this isn't the best effect, and you can fine-tune it more, but just as an illustration of what you can do with it. And of course, we didn't try to combine it with the highlight reconstruction module. So as you can see now, it's a little bit over exaggerated. Then we could probably pull back a little bit to see how that would help, and put back that to none. There you go, it filled it all with the correct yellow. I think the effect, especially for a quick edit like this, is acceptable. If you don't know that the colors were overexposed, then you probably wouldn't see it quickly. And of course, this is an extreme case. I would not normally try to save this photo. I had better ones from the same session, but it's a very good example to show what you can do with the color reconstruction module. If we actually put that back to reconstruct in LCH, we might be able to get some detail and then try to fix the color. As you can see, there is a little bit more detail here. So it's up to you to choose which combination of the two modules is best for your photo. And of course, don't expect miracles. If most of the photo is overexposed, you will never get a good result. If it's just a small part that's ruining the whole photo for you, like I said earlier, if it's a part of the face in a portrait, then that would be much easier to recover, as long as it's a small area in relation to the whole subject. That's it for today. I hope that you found this video both informative and entertaining. If you have any questions, remarks, or corrections, please leave them in the comments below, and I'll see you next time. Bye bye.